Let's look at Tuesday. There are 4 games on. Let's preview them. Let's look at the waiver wire. Let's listen to Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and they call me the lab-grown diamond because something this beautiful can't possibly exist naturally. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky, joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Go check out Locked On Daily. That is where you will find the best news for your favorite NBA team, lockedondaily.com. Yeah, do it. Check it out. Also, double bang. Find this podcast wherever you find audio stuff. Subscribe free. Your team every day. First listen every day. You know how it all goes. We're here to talk about Tuesday, which is a 4-game day. Therefore, it is a key streaming day because Wednesday we have every single team playing. Thanks, NBA. And you can't do anything without sort of a day. You can stream Tuesday, you can stream Thursday, and then we've got the All-Star break coming up. We've got 4 games on Tuesday. None of them are back-to-backs Monday to Tuesday. Of course, every team that plays Tuesday is in a back-to-back playing Wednesday, so you're going to have some front-end back-to-back risks that are coming up. Let's take a look at these 4 games. Let's see what is on my radar. The first game, it involves your Toronto Raptors and the Philadelphia 76ers. We're in Philadelphia. For this one, in terms of schedule stuff, it's a Schedule Plus spot for Philadelphia. Injuries, no surprise, but Jakob Poeltl is out and Brandon Ingram is out. Barrett is also out. So that is 3 of their presumed starters all out. Grady Dick left the last game with a neck injury, so he's listed probable here. So we're probably getting Dick with his neck, I guess. And then Jonathan Mogbo is probable as well, and I'm assuming that he will start. In a revenge game, Kyle Lowry is out. Joel Embiid is questionable, and Eric Gordon is questionable. Remembering this is a first game of a back-to-back for the Sixers, so it is possible that Embiid sits this one and then plays Wednesday, or vice versa. Of course, we would love if Embiid would play on Tuesday and sit Wednesday from a fantasy perspective, because we get to play him on the lower volume day, opening up an active roster spot on Wednesday. But you can't always get what you want. Manuel quickly played 31 minutes last game. I want to see how far they push him. Now, they've got the back-to-back too, and he's not on the injury report, so I'm going to guess he plays Tuesday. There is a risk that he rests Wednesday as well, but how much do they push him? Does he go to 33, 35, or does he stay at 31? And how does his usage look with all these guys out? I think it's going to be pretty good. For the Sixers, we only got 25 minutes of Gershon Yabusele last game with Maxey and George and Embiid all playing. Yabusele's value rises when Embiid is out, obviously, but it doesn't always hit, and I just want to see how he gets used as well with Quentin Grimes there. There's a chance that it's just Grimes, Oubre, George, Embiid, Maxey as your top 5 guys, and then the other starter, Justin Edwards and Gershon, are the 6th and 7th men. That does make it hard to roster Yabusele. 24 minutes is nowhere near enough. We roster Yabusele at the moment for the hope that Embiid, you don't hope, but the idea that Embiid misses 50% of the games and you get some value out of him. But we need to watch that. In terms of streams, I do really like John Mogbo here. He's going to start almost assuredly. He's going to have some bad shooting nights, but he can get steals and blocks and rebounds and some assists. And deeper leagues, you look at Orlando Robinson and Chris Boucher. I think Grimes is probably the guy I like in Philadelphia. I can see him pushing to 33, 34 minutes. Talked about the Nick Nurse, the minutes stuff. If he's able to push ahead of Justin Edwards and not even just get into the starting lineup, but just get that starting role, he might become a 12-team league guy. Probably not, because he's not going to be a high usage player, but he'd be like one injury away from being a must roster, I think, with Grimey at the moment, because he has indeed himself already. You've seen Rick Council out of the rotation. Edwards' minutes have pushed down. Gordon's minutes have pushed down. And Grimes could easily find himself getting 35 minutes a night here. And that would make him absolutely intriguing to us. The second game that we take a look at, Indiana hosting the New York Knickerbockers. This is a Schedule Plus spot for the Knicks. Robinson is going to be out. That's Mitch Robinson, if you don't know. Pacom Daddier is out. Big one there. Anunoby has been upgraded to questionable. All right. This is the first of a back-to-back. I find it incredibly unlikely that Anunoby plays both of these games with a foot sprain, but upgraded to questionable is a huge sign. If he is out, of course, we would prefer him out Tuesday versus Wednesday. We would use Precious Achua. We get a little bit more in from Juice McBride as well, but that's what we're looking at. But it does mean that any long-term stream of Achua probably doesn't exist. Jalen Brunson also popped up as probable on the injury report. That's seemingly happening every game, so don't worry too much about it. I'm surprised Josh Hart didn't pop up as probable either. And then for the Pacers, Myles Turner with that neck issue. If Turner is out, then Tom Bryant and Obi Toppin get that bump. I'm just going to double check to see whether we've got any news on Turner. We do not. All right, so that's cool. So yeah, we don't know about whether Turner's going to be available with that neck strain that he is currently dealing with. So we keep an eye on it. We see how we go. Today's episode is brought to you by Open Phone. Small businesses, you have so much to do. You know that. There's so many different jobs that you need to have, and your personal phone morphs itself into being your business phone. It can get overwhelming to always have stuff happening on your personal phone when you're trying to get some downtime. Juggling those customer calls day and night, that's where Open Phone comes in. It's the number one business phone system designed to keep your work and your personal life separate. For just $15 a month, the cost of a few coffees, you can get complete transparency and visibility into everything happening with your business phone number. Open Phone works through an app on your phone or your computer and integrates with tools like HubSpot and hundreds of others. It uses AI-powered call transcripts and summaries, so you'll have a rundown of your calls and action items the second that you hang up. And if you miss a call, well, no worries. Automated messages are sent directly to your customer, ensuring that you never miss an opportunity to engage. Right now, OpenPhone is offering 20% off your first 6 months. So when you go to openphone.com/LockedOnNBA, that is openphone.com/LockedOnNBA for 20% off for 6 months. Openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no additional charge. Okay. We're here looking at the games on Tuesday. Like I said, it's only 4 of them. So we've got a very wide open streaming window for us. The third game of the day is the only game at the moment that has a spread release. It is the Pistons and the Bulls in Chicago. The Pistons are 3.5-point favorites on the road here. It is a Schedule Plus spot for the Bulls. Ayo and Lonzo Ball, originally when I did this, they were both said that we had them listed questionable, and we didn't know whether they'd be available to play, but they both didn't practice. Now, we've got an update on that. Lonzo Ball has been ruled out, all right? But it's the first of a back-to-back. So Lonzo was sitting one of them anyway. So he's out on Tuesday with influenza/load management, and Ayo is probable. So he's ready to go. The official Pacers injury report came in, by the way, and Turner is questionable for that one. So yeah, we've got those, the only injuries, though, for both of these teams for this game. So that's obviously useful to know where guys stand. Now, the Bulls, we have some worries about the way they're going to approach all of this, because the way that they just checking on the some news that's just dropped about the Wolves and their ownership. So the ownership has gone through. Alex Rodriguez and Mark Laurie have been taken over. All right, that's good for Timberwolves. All right, there you go. Dosunmu probable ball out. So look, we know who's going to be available. The problem with the Bulls is they can get cooked at any point, and they can limit the minutes of some of their guys. So we want to watch that. Last game, we saw the first game in Detroit, or the first game in Pistons colors, for Dennis Schroeder. And it wasn't very good. He barely played. And it's going to be hard, because Cade is there, Malik Beasley is there, Tim Hardaway is there, and then Schroeder is there. So theoretically, you could say, well, maybe Schroeder could play 25 minutes, but apparently not. Because they still gave minutes to Simone Fontecchio. Ron Holland still got in the mix. The guy that just lost out was Sasa. And I thought Schroeder would get more than Sasa, but he basically just took all of Marcus Sasa's minutes. So we're 100%, now, if you're not aware of this, we're 100% not rostering Dennis Schroeder.
Get that garbage out of here.
Please don't be doing that. You don't roster Dennis Schroeder in any 10 or 12 or, honestly, probably 14-team leagues. But we watched to see whether that was just a one-game thing or if that's what they do. The next one is Vooch, because Nikola Vucevic has struggled the last few games. The minutes have been kept down a little bit. And Jalen Smith, honestly, has been playing really well. Are they going to do that 29-19 minute split? Does Vooch go back to 33? Does he start shooting like the tall Steph Curry that he actually is? Does my GOAT produce those numbers again? I don't know. We want to watch it. We want to see, not really about his shooting, because we know that was fake. Even the most ardent Vooch fluffers would admit that shooting was all fake. What we want to see is if he plays 32, 33 minutes, or if he sort of fades back to 29. That's important. Who are the stream guys here? Well, Lonzo Ball would have been, but he's not playing. I would assume he was going to be useful, but the guy we want to look at in Chicago is clearly Matas Buzelis. He's just a must-roster player, but his numbers haven't risen enough to pass my streaming threshold. And then Isaiah Stewart is probably the guy for Detroit ahead of Schroeder. Beasley, if he's available, he's sitting right at 40%, which my cutoff is less than 40. He's sitting at 40, but Beasley's the guy that I would look to. Otherwise, we go to Schroeder in that spot. Not Schroeder, Stewart. Schroeder. I've got Dennis Schroeder on my mind. The next game is the last game. It is Memphis, and it is Phoenix. We've got some interesting injury spots here. Both teams are in a Schedule Plus spot, Memphis and Phoenix. Marvin Bagley plays for Memphis. Yeah, he's out. Cody Martin is out for Phoenix. And then we've got Bradley Beal being doubtful, Kevin Durant questionable, Grayson Allen questionable, and Vasilije Micic is also questionable. So a lot of interesting type scenarios there. Because when they're all available, Micic, Allen, Durant, Beal, Martin, they're all going to sort of eat each other. Now, Durant's going to do his thing. Beal, honestly, Beal might, and before, again, don't get worked up about it, he might end up being a drop. He's not doing enough. There's a lot of guys sort of eating into those minutes. And if Martin, I don't think Micic is going to play. It doesn't really matter. So it's going to be Martin, O'Neale, Beal, Jones, Allen, done. Beal is not this guy getting super high usage anymore. He's not getting super high minutes. He's sort of moved into a role play, which is very weird. But they also, Budenholzer, I don't know what's going on. There is something weird going on with that team because Beal is better than these players. Nurkic is better than those other centers, but there's a lot of other stuff going on behind the scenes, I think, pretty clearly. Anyway, my point is to say, don't marry yourself to holding on to Beal all the way through. And a lot of the time when I talk about that, when I talk about this guy might be a drop or watch this situation, it doesn't mean drop him. It just means that, like, in the past, I would have said, don't ever consider dropping Bradley Beal. And now I look at it and go, yeah, I can see why you would. I don't think you necessarily should, and I'd like to hold through it. But our valuation has to change. Has to change. That's another thing that I don't get. I've got a little bit of time on this show that I'll talk about. Is that, yeah, I do this show and we talk about fantasy, but for anybody, right? There's going to be criticisms of people and, he contradicts himself. He changes his opinion. Yes. I would much rather be criticized for changing my opinion or allegedly contradicting myself because new information has arrived. If I've got to take an opinion, a thought, in October, August, where I think Carlo Matkovic might have a chance to be the Pelican starting center. What would be the point of me in the middle of January saying, don't worry guys, it's going to happen at any point now? I change my mind. I evaluate things every day, literally multiple times every day. And at the start of the season, I was like, I think Beal might be an actual bit of a value here. He's sliding down a bit. He's still going to start. It's unfathomable they would bench him. He's going to play 35 minutes. He's going to still be really good. He's shot really well. He does enough. And now they've benched him. I didn't see it coming. His minutes are down. His production is down. I go, well, you know what? Everything has changed there. That is a completely different set of information that we have. And if you keep the same idea from a week ago, 2 weeks ago, a month ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, you're going to have a bad time, man. So I would much rather, and that's, again, if you think that is a source of inconsistency or contradictions, this is why it is. Because I'm not going to stick to something just because I said it. I'm going to stick to something because I believe it still is the case, or I'm going to change my mind because new information has come to light. Anyway, Zach Edey. My opinion on him hasn't really changed. I think he's a bad team guy who can beat up against bad teams. Against good teams, he's going to get pulled off the court, and that makes him very unreliable. We saw last game he played 12 minutes. He got benched about 3 minutes into the second half. But the 3 games prior to that, he was like a top 70 player. He does have an incredibly fantasy-friendly game. Points, rebounds, all double-doubles, some blocks, very high field goal percentage, not a killer on your free throws. It's incredibly useful for fantasy, especially category leagues. But as we always say, everything always ends up coming back to it, especially when you're talking more than just what's happening this day or the next day. If you're not good enough to be out there, I don't care how fantasy Moses Brown friendly your game is. I don't care how Mo Bamba your numbers look when you're playing that one game. It doesn't, Tony Roten, matter if you can put up good numbers in that little bit of time, because eventually you're just not going to Hassan Whiteside see the court because you're bad. And I think that's like short-term, sure. Long-term, when we're talking about streaming Thomas Bryant guys in, you got to have an idea of, is this guy good? Can he actually stay on the court? Because Edey's better than all those guys I I don't know if you noticed, I subtly threw a few names in there. But Zach Edey's better than those guys, I think. But he also hasn't shown anything to prove that he's going to be much better. So we continue to watch. And is the Suns against a good team? I don't know. The thing that he gets to go up against here is another bad team merchant in BDNR, Nick Richards. Because Nick Richards has had a couple of really big games against like Brooklyn. And who was the other terrible team that he did against? And then against good teams, he gets like a minus 15 in 20 minutes, gets benched for the cockroach. And that is the sign of a bad player. So, much like earlier on when we talk about Bradley Beal, is Nick Richards a hold? Like maybe. But we're talking about a back-end player who on average players play 3.8 times per week, meaning you get, let's say, 22 minutes a game. You might get 80 minutes a week out of Nick Richards. But if you use that roster spot to find a 25-minute player off the waiver wire who you can get 5.5 games out of, you're talking about 130 to 140 minutes. And in certain situations, holding on to somebody who gets you 80 minutes a week on average and is mid versus streaming that through to find hot options or volume options and getting 130 minutes of action, 120 minutes of action, it's not worth it. And we need to view things that way. I know that's a lot of talk in there, but again, with only 4 games on, I can expand a little bit more on sort of thinking and strategy. I think Brandon Clark is worth a stream for the Grizzlies. Vince Williams would be, but I'm not convinced his minutes are high enough yet. GG Jackson's the guy that, man, I really need points and I don't care about anything else. Then he would be there, but he's not going to do that reliably. And then Royce O'Neale is interesting. Of course, there's a lot of different options there, but if Durant or Allen get ruled out, that really does help Royce quite a bit become an interesting stream guy in that particular spot. All right. So again, we're in a spot where I don't need to tell you who the back-to-back streams are because literally every player who plays or every team that plays Tuesday plays Wednesday. We're not doing chunky stuff because over the next 5 NBA game days, there's actually nobody who is playing on 3 quality games. There's none. And we're not doing 5s and 7s because we're in a weird all-star break period. So let's just get straight into the streams and talk about the streams of the day for Tuesday. We'll start with a 10-team streamer, remembering that these can be streamed in a lot of different spots. Is Royce O'Neale a particularly exciting option? Not really, but you could have Durant, Beal, Allen, Martin, Midzic all out. And that would make him probably the pick of the bunch, I think. For 12-teamers, I do like going with Quentin Grimes, who I think is looking... Grimes and Christie are players that I'm going to inextricably link together for a long time, also because I think their games are pretty similar. But they're guys that I've always liked, and I think they can develop into pretty good play. You know who they remind me of a little bit? This is going to be a weird one. They remind me a little bit, I have to go check some of the statistical similarities, but Evan Fournier, a guy that can handle the ball a little bit, can shoot a little bit. Fournier, terrible defender, missed 2 blocks across 3 seasons. But these guys are better defenders, but offensive game-wise, this is a little bit of a reminder of those sort of players. But they're guys that probably need a few things to go right to really ramp a usage up, but I think they're good players. 14-team category league stream of the day is John Mogbo. He's about 2% rostered, right? I think he probably, at this point, you just grab him, and we'll see what happens with Poeltl. And then for 16-teamers, it is the cockroach, Mason Plumlee. For your Yahoo and ESPN points leagues, this guy's available in so many spots. It's Matas Buzelis. He should not be. Yes, his current shooting is going to drop. But the shot blocking, I think, is relatively real, and I don't want to have faith in the Bulls, but I do think they're going to continue to give him very strong run here rest of the year. And I do believe, unbelievably, yes, I believe it. It is unbelievable. Whether you believe the unbelievability of it, I don't know. But I think they might have said, yeah, Patrick Williams isn't it. For the 20th time, by the way, because how many times Pat Williams starts? Ooh, bench for Torrey Craig. Pat Williams starts, bench for a 6'1" point guard. Pat Williams starts, bench for someone else who's out of the league entirely. Pat Williams starts, better give him $90 million in money. Pat Williams starts, now bench for Matas Buzelis and Ayodesumu Weber. Like, how many times do they want to pull their own football out before they kick it with this guy? It's happened every year. Every year it happens. But is it finally the time that they're just going to commit to it? Because what's always happened in the past is that they'd bench him. 3 days later, the guy replacing him will get hurt, and then you go back and start. I hope that doesn't befall, that misfortune doesn't befall Buzelis here. 10-team streamers. We start off with Mr. O'Neale at the top, Big Baz Marty Man, Quentin Grimes, Johnny Mogbo, Stixie Smith. Jalen's doing really well, even in limited minutes. So, I get it. In 12-team leagues, you do drop him. But I'm going to be really, really... in deeper leagues, I have held him. In deeper benches, I've held him. I don't have any information on this whatsoever. I don't have anybody in the Bulls or sources with the Bulls to tell me stuff. But you know that there are certain teams where I get more information on. And sometimes I have some other sources, but I don't have anything specific here with the Bulls. But I just, from following and watching and doing this job, there's just a vibe. There's just something, and I've never really said this about the Bulls, there's just something that makes me think, get ready for some sort of switcheroo. There's just something, and I can't put my finger fully on it. So, I'm just watching Smith closely. Anyway, 10-team stream. The big sneeze. Prusachura is there, as is Ochai Agbaji, because of the absences of Barrett and of Poeltl and of Ingram. 10-team streamers, we're going to the Flaming Galah, Alf Stewart, the Cockroach, Mason Plumlee, Brandon Clark. There he is, the man, Pat Williams, Timothy John McConnell, and the wiki, Chris Boucher. For deeper leagues, Justin Edwards, Aaron Neesmith, Tommy Bryant, and Obi Toppin, who would both jump way up if Myles Turner is out, Jamal Shedworld, and Luke Kennard, the Duck. For Yahoo points, which is a very similar list to the ESPN points leagues, we're going to go with Matas Buzelis. I'm going to ask a question, and I know I'm going to get terrible answers back. Do you have a good nickname for Matas Buzelis? I know that someone's going to say something else, like the Raging Boo or something. It's going to be something terrible. Mabu. Is that what it's going to be? Mabu. That's an indigenous restaurant in Melbourne, I'm pretty sure, who have some of the goated, indigenous spices. Mabu, shout out to those guys. Fed Square, I think, in Melbourne. But before that, I used to have a stall at the market. Anyway, this is a sidetrack show. Mabu. Anyway, is that Buzelis's? Do I call him what? Lemon pepper? Not lemon pepper. What's the bush pepper? What's it called? Lemon myrtle? That's incredibly I'm going to find out. Let me find out. All right, so Mabu, correct. Indigenous restaurant in Melbourne. Now, I just went to look at their thing. Lemon myrtle is one of the indigenous herbs and spices, but they got something else. They got a little bar called Big Esso, which is incredibly obscure and obtuse as a nickname for Matas Buzelis. So whatever you're going to say, the Big Lithuanian, the Big Marble, whatever. No, we're talking Big Esso. Matas Buzelis, Big Esso. I don't know if I'm going to get that to stick, even with me. Big Esso. It makes absolutely no sense from the outside, but that's what we're doing. Big Esso, Matas Buzelis. Here's your top stream, followed by Quentin Grimes, Johnny Mogbo, Royce O'Neale, Andy Nembhard, and Gershon Yabusele. This show has been unhinged. I do apologize. ESPN points, we're just doing the same sort of stuff here. Buzelis, O'Neale, Grimes, Mogbo, Nembhard, and Gershon Yabusele. And that is the end of the show. It is Get Out Your Guitar Day. Please don't. Anyway, here's Wonderwall. Yeah. If you do have... Actually, you know what? If you do want to get your guitar out, do it. Because that's what the day is about. Get it out. I've got a couple of guitars. I used to be able to play a little bit and then stopped playing it. And I'm probably more into collecting guitars, even though I don't collect them. That's what I'd be more into. I think I love guitars. Anyway, am I going to get mine out? No, because it's not tuned. I don't have fresh strings. I don't have my amp here. I don't have any acoustic guitars. I've just got electric guitars. Anyone can guess what guitars I've got? Drop them down in the comments. I'll give you a shout out. I have 2 electric guitars. Just give me a shape/model. Or don't. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.